parts of the curriculum. So if it's talking about relationships, same-sex couples, gender identity, that portion, and when you read the notices, they usually say a portion of, that portion is not included in what they're to be notified and opting out of. That portion is the majority of what the curriculum is. And so that's where the disagreement comes on whether you can opt out or not. And that's increasingly becoming, as parents are finding out, tension with the school districts. And those of you that are down south here saw how Orange County Office of Education said, no, you can't opt them out. We've put together, Capital Resource Institute, a policy that ensures you can. It says, hey, when all of these things are being talked about, and we define what all of these things mean, you must notify parents and you must allow them the opportunity to opt out. So we make it really clear. So no matter whether you're Orange County or another organization, how you interpret it, the local school district has a policy that says we are going to respect parental rights. We are going to notify them and let them make the decision if their kids are ready for this type of curriculum. So next slide. Oh, we can pass this slide. This kind of is what I was just saying. Oh, let's keep passing again, because apparently I didn't know what I was doing. Okay, what's next? What can you do? We talked about a policy, and we have this policy going forth in Chino Valley. It's a policy that, again, takes the sexually transmitted diseases and HIV and expands that to include other sensitive topics like sexual orientation, gender identity, harassment, bullying. So anytime they're going to bring that into the classroom, they will have to notify the parents, allow the parents the opportunity to opt out. Some parents may opt out, some parents may not. Some parents may just want to know so they can have the conversation with their students before or after the class takes place. But it should be up to the parent to decide on these sensitive topics what their children are hearing. You know, we had 4 kids, and our kids were different maturity levels at different ages. You know, one, we didn't have him get our oldest, his license right away. He was a little more ADHD, and, you know, we were a little concerned that he, you know, was a little distracted. What we allowed him to do is different. What we kind of exposed them to at different ages was different. We were a little bit different with our boys than we were with our girls. But we're also, again, took each personality into account, and that should be something parents get to do, and not just the government come in and tell you your 6th grader is going to learn about anal sex and, you know, we're going to teach them how to put a condom on. You may not want that shared with your 6th graders. So you can get a policy in place, and what's been taken away at the state level, a lot of parental rights can be brought back at the local level. Next slide. So long term, our goal is to eliminate the law. Some states don't even do sex ed. I don't think, you know, California used to have really great test scores. I don't think we need to be spending 12 hours in 6th grade on your gender identity when we can't even compete in math and the sciences. And then short term, we believe that you need to protect your kids now. They're going to be teaching this, and while the legal firms argue about whether or not you can opt out, the only way to ensure you can is to get a policy in place that says you can. And then that's what your school district has to be governed by, would be the local policy that the local school board. So we're encouraging and we're working with parents in different school districts to pass a policy that respects parental rights. And I think they were handing out a little sheet as you came in where you can fill out your name, your email, I think it has your zip code, and then your school district. So if you could fill those out. I've been doing public records requests on a lot of the school districts, and so a lot of information I'm getting directly from the open records requests that I've been doing. How many of you have heard, and you can go to the next slide, how many of you have heard that they're not teaching this in my school? Raise them high, yeah. Well, they are, yeah. Even words I didn't know that I've had to Google in some of these. Okay, so they are. And I'm just gonna, you can kind of flip through the next 2 slides. Because this is basically, I'm calling it any classroom in the state of California, Chino Valley Unified. I'm not picking on them. This is an example of what I'm finding in every school district. So I'm using them because that's where we're working right now. So it's not that I think they're the exception. They're actually the way I have always found it to be. And that is that the schools are complying with the law, but they're telling parents that they're not. And as an example, in Chino Valley, we wanted to put this policy forward. We met with the superintendent. We met with school board members. We were told, hey, there is no need to do this. We are not complying with the California Healthy Youth Act. We're not teaching all that other stuff. My first question was, well, what other laws are you choosing not to follow? I mean, I don't agree with this law, but I also don't agree with you just deciding as a board what laws you're going to follow and what laws you're not going to follow. That's a problem. So they said, don't bring this policy because then everyone will know that we're not doing it. And we're letting parents opt in. And I said, well, the California Healthy Youth Act prohibits you from doing opt-ins. So again, what other laws are you not following that as a member of the public I think you are? So they said, don't bring it up, you're going to out us. We met with the superintendent. It took several months to get a copy of the curriculum they were using. And so we said, okay, we'll slow down. We won't put this policy forward and ask you to vote on it. I did an open records request and found out the curriculum that the administration gave to the school board members was incorrect. It was 2010 or 2012's curriculum. They had been updating it. I have all the emails. I have all the teachers that went through the teacher training. They'd been updating the curriculum, and in 2016, when this law took effect, they were 99% compliant with the California Healthy Youth Act. That was in 2016. They had been doing this, but the public, including their bosses, the school board, was unaware of it because they were not telling them. I will tell you, every single public records request that I've done, they are teaching it. Even in ones that you read in EdSource or in the newspaper, they say that we voted it down. They might have done a vote right then and there that said, no, we're not going to move forward with this one right now this year, but that's because they already have one that they're using in the school district, and they're pacifying the parents for now as they try and figure out what to do. So that is going on, and that's why it's important that we have a plan, we get our hands on the curriculum. You're going to go, parent after parent, they go, they're told, we can't copy it because of copyright. We're told, we can't give you everything. Or they're given something, but the minute you start asking questions, you find out this isn't everything. And oh, there's a teacher's manual that goes with this. And the teacher's manual tells you all of these prompting questions so that you can get the conversation going, go into really deep conversations, and then say, oh, it was organic, the kids asked. But it's in the teacher's manual to prompt the asking. And so that's happening in all of the school districts. I'm confident there's not one where I've done an open records request where they weren't teaching it. And I have to say, it is the law. As bad as the law does say that. I'm not going to ask a school district to violate the law and bankrupt their school district. That hurts everybody. But I am going to try and find a way to protect the kids in the meantime while we try and change the law. So next slide. Next slide, I did my Freedom of Information, and it showed that they had been compliant. I had, again, all the teachers training. By the way, Scott knows this. I've known Scott Voights for a long time. Public officials, school boards, all of their business is open to the public. You have to ask for it, and sometimes it's pulling teeth to get it. But I've been asking and getting the copies of the emails. So, for instance, in Anaheim, I see every single invoice that they paid the LGBT Center to come in and do training, the tens of thousands of dollars that they're doing. I mean, we're seeing what's actually going on, what they think about parents. You know, parents were writing in Chino Valley saying, what curriculum are you using and are you doing this? And literally, you have the email chain where it goes through and it says, here's how I'm going to answer it. I'm going to run it by legal department first. Okay, you're just answering a parent's question on the curriculum. Why do you need to run that through the legal department if you're telling the truth? Just answer the parent's question. But with open records, you're able to get that. Next slide. And then actually we're going to end mine with this one because I've gone over. Don't assume that your school district's not doing it. I'm confident they are following the law. Don't assume that you're different. We're in a conservative area. Or, I love my teacher. How many of you heard about the situation in Rockland where they did the transition ceremony, the coming out ceremony, read the book I Am Jazz, the kindergartner went in, he came out, he was announced as a girl. They, for 2 months, said, no, this didn't happen. We didn't open records request. We have the emails. Not only did it happen, but it happened just the way the parents said it. But these parents, some of them literally were in tears because they had so trusted this teacher and believed they loved Miss Sweeney. They loved her and couldn't believe she betrayed the parents like that. She goes to our church, or our board would never let this happen. It's happening. Chino Valley is just one example of the board being deceived. And it's important that you partner with us, that we move forward to restore parental rights at the local level as we work on changing the law at the state level. And if you've got questions before we have Matt Sharp with ADF come up, we've got people in the t-shirts that say pray, vote, well, pray, vote, stand. I should know I'm with FRC Action when I'm not wearing this hat. And we've got index cards. You can fill out some questions if you've got questions and then turn them in, and at the end we'll do a question answer portion. So there in the shirts, just raise your hand if you've got questions. Or your next speaker, how many of you are familiar with Jack the Baker case? Oh, okay. Matt, you didn't raise your hand. Okay, so Alliance Defending Freedom handled that case along with many others. They are a nonprofit law firm that they're kind of the opposite, I say, of the ACLU. Matt Sharp, it's a real honor to have him come out here and doing these kind of town halls for us, because ADF, they're, I think, one of the best resources on any of these issues that somebody would have. I mean, this weekend I shared the story earlier that I had a parent from Rockland texting me. By the way, they have 33 students that are opting out of the sex ed in Rockland. She texted me something, and I'm texting Matt at 10 o'clock over the weekend. He's answering me. I'm getting the answer to the mom, and she's getting it back to the parent group that she's involved with. So very hardworking, but they've won 9 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court in the last 7 years. They've done an awesome job. Yes, they will. There will be plenty. And then 2 of them were just this last session. I mean, as attorneys, any of you that work in law, a lot of times they don't even get a case that goes before the U.S. Supreme Court, let alone having a record where you're 9 for 9 in 7 years. So it's a real blessing to have him. Please listen to everything he says because, again, they know what they're talking about. They've been winning when it comes to knowing what the law is. And so I want to introduce to you Senior Counsel for Alliance Defending Freedom, Matt Sharp.
It's so great to be with you all here tonight, and I do want to dive in a little bit and piggyback off what Karen was talking about in regards to parental rights, because this does seem to be an area where we're getting lots and lots of more questions as we're seeing these issues come up in public schools, and parents are saying, what are my rights? What am I protected when it comes to educating my child? What am I protected when it comes to what they're being taught and my ability to opt out? And so I want to dive into a little bit of that. But then I also want to talk about students' rights, because there are a lot of rights that your children or your grandchildren have that they carry with them to schools that can help provide them ways to defend their right to speak on these issues, to live out their faith at school. So we'll go ahead and go to the first slide. The Supreme Court has recognized that there is a fundamental right of parents to direct the upbringing of their children. It's actually a case from the 1920s. They recognize this. It's just said the U.S. Supreme Court has recognized the liberty of parents and guardians to direct the upbringing and education of children under their control. This is great. Unfortunately, the courts that have subsequently interpreted that have not been as broad in its protection. So a case came up in I think it was 2004, 2005, here in California. It was the Palmdale School District, and the school district was asking students questions as part of a survey about some of their sexual interest and activities and things like that. And so one of these children comes home, tells their parents what was happening at school, and the parents were rightly appalled that this was going on without the parents' knowledge. So they filed a lawsuit against the school district and said, you have violated our rights as parents. of giving our kids this instruction, of asking them these questions without our knowledge and our consent.